If you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Hi, thank you and welcome. We have a fairly light agenda tonight with some actually fun things to talk about, so we'll go ahead and get started on those. The first order of business is the approval of tonight's agenda. I'd like a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Move.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion about the agenda tonight? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That passes, thank you. The next item is I need a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes from January 18th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions or corrections on those minutes? All right, the motion is to approve those minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? All right, that passes. Thank you. Next item is patrons' comments. We do not have any patrons' comments tonight, which saves me from having to read through half a page. So, very good. Next is superintendent and board comments. So I will turn that over to our superintendent, Dr. Knost.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to see everyone. A couple of good things to talk about, fun things to talk about. Maybe you saw some of this on the news last night if you were watching Channel 5 at Bowles Elementary second grade students. They got a lesson in television commercial production January 8th when they were featured in a Super Bowl public service announcement. It was sponsored by the NCADA, or the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, St. Louis area branch. Howard Weissman, the executive director of NCADA, said the theme of this year's spot is hopeful and future focused. You may recall this isn't the first time that Rockwood is partnered with NCADA on their Super Bowl commercial. We did that, I believe it was 2 years ago. Pretty shocking message. They centered it around Lafayette's Escadrille team, and it was really about the opioid and heroin issue. Last year did not involve us, but they had another very strong message that depicted an overdose. This year they went in a different direction, and it's very much about prevention, and it's got a different feel to it. And we had a public release, if you will, of the video yesterday at Summit, and good crowd there, and very different feel to the message. Very I mean, I hate to say uplifting, but you'll see. We're going to show it to you here in a minute. So anyway, we saw the world premiere, and the rest of the world will see it. If you're watching the Super Bowl, right after halftime, don't go away. I think they told us it would maybe be the second or third commercial after halftime. So it's only a minute long, and I wish it could be an hour long because it's that good and that powerful. So Alex, and Bretta, let's watch.
It's who we love. And at a time when we have never seemed more divided, a common enemy is killing our loved ones. It doesn't care about our differences or disagreements, about red states, blue states, black lives, or white privilege. It's a threat to each and every child. It is addiction. But if we commit the time, the talent, and the money, we can protect our kids. Prevention worked for measles, malaria, and polio. Prevention worked to shrink our smoking habit. Prevention works. Life can be painful for our kids, especially in these times. But we can teach them resilience and how to make healthy choices. When we act early, we can prevent addiction. Support prevention efforts in your school and community. Start the conversation. Talking to your kids about drugs isn't easy, but we can help. Learn how at talkaboutitstl.com.
So clearly we have some of our own actors in there, some of our kids. There's even the gentleman that plays the dad sitting at the table there at the end is a Eureka police officer. So there's a lot of familiar faces in there, but they just did a phenomenal job, and we're really proud to be part of that message. So make sure you're watching. A couple other things. The first semester of the Early College Partnership, we call it the ECP program. I think Todd named that, right? Todd came up with that. We had all kinds of acronyms, and that one worked the best. But that's between Rockwood and St. Louis Community College. Wildwood, it came to an end. The first semester did, not the program. In December, with several good reports, 29 Rockwood High School juniors and seniors completed the semester. Nearly 1/3 earned a perfect 4.0 grade point average. 18 of the 29 made the dean's list. All 29 have returned for a second semester, and all of them say that they are coming back next school year. And that program, just to remind you, is a tuition-free program for Rockwood students and allows them to graduate high school with a high school diploma and an associate's degree. We're very proud of that program, and we see it being something of the future for the Rockwood School District and the Wildwood Community College. The Rockwood School District is promoting and hosting a diversity job fair under the leadership of our own Katie Rebelay on Wednesday, February 21st, 5 to 7 p.m. at Rockwood South Middle School. Rockwood is accepting applications for all positions. The diversity itself remains a priority in the Rockwood School District. Our goal is to have a staff that reflects our student population. Diversity is a great thing in everybody's life and helps prepare our students for their futures. So we're excited to, again, is it the second year we did it? The second year we've done this, and we hope to have a really good turnout. Marquette science teacher Kathy Farrar was one of 7 teachers in the St. Louis area to be recognized with the Challenger Learning Center Inspiring Teacher Award on January 25th. That's a pretty high honor, and congrats to her. And finally, 5th grade students at Baldwin Elementary hosted the Imagination Arcade to wrap up study on a unit about electricity. They constructed a cardboard arcade complete with sounds and blinking lights, and then they invited people to play and collected nearly $1,000 for the American Cancer Society through Relay for Life, which is something that Rockwood supports very, very much. So we have a video depicting that day as well. Let's watch.
Here we go. Oh, there's one. There's one. So that's 10 points. Try and get 20. In 5th grade, we're learning about electricity, and as a way to wrap up this lesson, we teams of 5th graders, we made arcades out of cardboard boxes. Well, I've learned it's very hard to make an arcade, and that using circuits, it takes a while.
I think I like the Plinko game, because what you do is you drop the ball from the top and it goes through.
Well, it costs for the arcade, they range from free to $1, and all the money is going to the American Cancer Society. I think it's important to learn about this kind of thing because it helps you know about electricity. It might help you get a job, and also it's important to donate because there are people in need that can't afford stuff like the medications that they need. Okay, you did good, but even though you didn't quite get it in the hole and you were really close, you still get candy because they're nice. So what do you want, Starburst or Skittles? Starburst, magical box. You want a Starburst?
Kids are awesome. They are, you know, we're here to support and nurture and love them and see them thrive, but they are our #1 source of inspiration in what we do. I wanted to mention for a few minutes worth one other topic that you know, social media. I use social media heavily in my role as a communicator and leader, but it tends to be such a problematic and negative thing. And so I felt I needed to mention a little bit about our efforts with school start time, because some misinformation got out on social media this morning, so we started getting some questions coming in, and it causes us to divert our plan a little bit of rolling things out. But just real quick, and I won't belabor this, Paul and I have been heavily involved in this along with our transportation department. I've heard from our community, from all 4 years of my time here as superintendent, the middle school community has asked for a altered start time because our middle schools start quite early at 7:30. And a lot of people learned early on, it's just not as simple as making a decision you're going to move to a later start time when you have a 3-tier bus system that delivers more than half of our 21,000 students to school every day. And I'm happy to say, as we got inside of that system, it's currently a very efficient 3-tier system. And to have any kind of a move in start time, basically to make that work without just shifting a day for everybody, elementary, middle, and high, later to where they're getting home later in the afternoon, and we're messing with other schedules. You have to find ways to be more efficient in the current system that you have. And so we've tried all kinds of different things. I've been a real hard guy to deal with in this because they would sort through one thing and bring it back to me, and I would say, go try this. Easy for me to say that, but that means Paul has to go and sit down with the folks, and the routers have to start over from scratch and try things and lay it out. What we are about to wrap up is a model that is somewhat of a step in the right direction, and we think an option that we could try. But when you have an efficient system, there are trade-offs. And what we figured out, the most intricate part, well, we knew this, but this is how we figured out to make things more efficient. The most intricate part of a 3-tier transportation system tends to be the secondary routes, especially the high school routes, but the secondary routes where a bus goes into a subdivision. You think about that because all of those elementary school students funnel into a much smaller number of secondary schools. Our buses go into subdivisions, and they may stop in one subdivision, they may make 15 stops. And so we figured that a trade-off may be if we could compact some of those and have fewer stopping points. Maybe in the little cul-de-sacs, maybe the bus doesn't go into cul-de-sacs. We have problems with that because buses sometimes don't fit in cul-de-sacs, so that's sometimes where we hit mailboxes and things like that unintentionally. But in doing that, we could subtract minutes and end up with the possibility of our middle school starting about 20 minutes later in the morning, but allowing our elementary and our high school to only be impacted by about 10 minutes, which helps out a great deal. And the sacrifice for that is that we have to compact some of those routes. So we're still putting the fine touches on that, and then we're going to communicate that out and get community feedback about that. We plan to talk about it at our administrative council meeting next Tuesday, and then we'll start bringing that out for the community to hear more about in the future. But I thought I should bring it up tonight because a rumor was started today that the idea was that we were going to not send buses into any subdivision in the high schools, that we were just going to pick kids up. Say if there's a subdivision on 109, we were just going to stop on 109, and kids for subdivisions that may be 3 miles deep, they were all going to have to walk all the way to the front of the subdivision. And that's just entirely wrong and not true. So I just felt that I needed to say something tonight publicly, because it started a little bit of a storm, and we got the person that posted it to take it down, so it kind of halted. But that's where we're at, and we expect that some people say, you know, not everybody was for a change in start time, so maybe those people will be a little more in favor of something that's not a drastic change. But still, for those of us who have gone through getting kids ready for school in the morning, 20 minutes can make a huge difference. So others may say that, you know what, that's something. And again, there is a trade-off because those routes shorten a little bit in the high schools, but all kids will still have the opportunity to ride buses and so on and so forth. So we'll be rolling that out. It's not an agenda item tonight. I just felt because of the social media coverage that I needed to mention a few things. Do you think that kind of covered what needed to be said, Kathy? Yeah, Paul, you think so? No change in stops. At the elementary level, right. The elementary routes will stay we won't be compacting any of those just in the secondary routes. And if I understand it, in the secondary routes, if we compacted a subdivision instead of 10 stops, it's going to be 7 inside that subdivision. Those same stops will be echoed in the middle school routes as well. So there aren't any independent middle school routes that are shortened. It's just the ones that align with the tiers for the high schools that will mimic that. So we'll put that together. I've done a video that we've been fiddling with and trying to get it to be just right, along with a web page that we're going to open up and the ability for people to give feedback, and we'll see where that goes. So we've done this right. We've done it carefully. We've taken our time. We've spent a lot of time on it. A lot of people feel that it's just as simple as just move it. You know, it's just not that easy. So I'm sorry to belabor that, but I just felt compelled to mention something tonight, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any other board members with comments tonight?
And I would just like to thank publicly the Bread Co. in Sunset Hills. I was unaware of this, but apparently they donate upwards of $1,000 worth of pastries and bread and such to the Fenton community for families in need. I was fortunate enough to package some of that last Friday, and it was pretty cool to see.
Who was it?
In Sunset Hills.
Sunset Hills?
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah, so really good effort to help people in need.
Randy, just maybe, Carmen, can I put you on the spot? I know Dr. Kinder likes to talk about donations and such, but we just got some really good news today. Are you able to just say really quick about the donations?
Sure. We are going to receive $1,000 from School Lunch Fairy. It's a high school senior down in West Palm Beach, Florida. He saw the story on St. Louis Post-Dispatch this week about how we have parents, when they have students graduate or become inactive and they move out of the district, we contact them to ask them if they'd like their lunch account money returned to them, or they can pay forward as random acts of kindness, and then we help pay off other students' accounts who are having difficulty. So he saw the story air on St. Louis Post and then offered to donate $1,000. So he put the check in the mail. So we'll be using that to pay off lunch accounts. And then the Masonic Lodge in Fenton has also, they're going to donate $2,000, and then their National Masonic Lodge will be donating $2,000. So $2,000 will be for Fenton School specifically, and the other $2,000 is for the rest of the schools in Rockwood. So we'll put that towards students who are free and reduced and have negative meal account balances, and then other students who are known to, are struggling, and we know that we'll work to help those students as well. So it was really exciting to hear that news.
Thanks, Carmen. Thank you.
Any other comments? I do want to welcome one guest tonight, and waited to this point to do it, but Dr. Patty Polster is here from the Missouri School Board Association, and she's just here to join us this evening, and I asked her if she wanted to speak, and she said no, that she would like to just sit. So here I am embarrassing you in public. Didn't mean to do that, but welcome. We're glad you're here. All right. Any other comments tonight in the section? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda items. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of any of the items in the consent agenda?
I have Go ahead.
You started, go ahead.
I think we've talked about this before, and now I don't know where this is. When there's a change order, we always receive those as part of consent, but we never know, I guess I'll look at you, Chris, we never know what's being changed, like if there's something, what's new on there. So is there any way we can have those highlighted? You know what I'm saying?
Or a change order to the original contract amount. So what you're seeing is a running total of all of our active projects that are affected by that process.
So may have missed this. Do you do this every month? I mean, I know we see these all the time, but is it like every month you're just giving us those, regardless if there's something new on there?
Correct. It's informational. It's something that Tim and I had talked about a couple years ago when we started Bond Issue 15, is we wanted to make sure that, obviously we were being transparent with everything out there in regards to our construction projects. So I would say that there's been some minor adjustments to some clerical things on the list that you've seen, just closing out some of our projects from last summer. Right now that list is relatively inactive. It's just informational.
I guess what I was hoping is if the next time we have one of these and there was something that was added on since the last time, that would be kind of not significant, but then we could at least look at it and say, oh, yes, because they're great. I'm glad we're doing this, but it's just hard to see if there really was like the most recent one.
Right.
is what
So
I'm
just a
asking.
way to identify any changes
Right.
that are current.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll take a look at
I'd
that.
appreciate that. I like that.
Usually the one at the top.
No,
No.
they're not in any particular order. So we'll find a way to identify those changes,
All
yes.
right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Kinder?
We have a donation again tonight from the Marquette Parent Organization, $5,356.62 for new furniture for the guidance waiting area. And the organization is purchasing chairs and a table for the guidance waiting area, $5,356. I don't know what our total is this year, but it's growing steadily.
It's only January.
That's true, it is only January. I think it was December.
It's February, but who's
You
counting?
thought it was December?
Any other discussion or points on the consent agenda items? All right, the motion is to approve the consent agenda items. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That passes, thank you. We'll move on to the regular agenda items for tonight. The first one is a proclamation for the Social Work Month. I need a motion to approve the Board of Education Need a motion to approve that the Board of Education proclaim the month of March, and specifically the week of March 4th through 10th of 2018, as Social Work Week in the Rockwood School District. I think Mr. Todd Minicello, thank you. I usually try and read through these ahead of time, but welcome.
It's easier than it looks.
Okay, I need a motion to that effect? Yes.
So
Moved.
moved.
We have a motion in a second. Welcome.
Thank you. Very excited to represent social workers and be here to speak on their behalf and support social workers who are fantastic and hardworking and meeting the needs of students every day.
It was just a couple of years ago that we expanded the number of social workers in the district, and that really has been a beneficial thing to us. So, I agree with you.
And we wish that students didn't have needs for social workers, but everybody in this room knows that they do. And we have fantastic resources for students, and we know that the people that we have in those positions are phenomenal, and they are loving on students every day.
Todd, Mr. Monticello, how many social workers do we have now?
I'm not exactly sure. Social workers are under another umbrella, so
With Terry?
I can tell you exactly how many counselors we
You're
have.
standing in for
I think
Terry
there's
tonight, huh?
14.
Yes.
14?
14.
So I
Dr.
know
Reveley just told me
every-
it was 14.
Thank you. Every high school has a social worker, every middle school has a social worker, and then I get confused at the elementary level because we split them by quadrant, and so I get a little confused with those numbers. It's never enough, but we're really happy with what we have.
Of course. I think Dr. Kinder is going to read the proclamation for us.
Oh,
Oops, I'm
I'm
sorry,
not.
wrong one. I knew I'd get that wrong. Director Bays is going to read that proclamation for us.
I just want to second what you said, and the thing I love about our social workers and the ones I've interacted with is how creative and innovative they are at coming up with solutions and constantly trying to, reach and do things for the students, which is awesome. So here's the proclamation: United to make a better world. Whereas school social workers in the Rockwood School District and districts across the nation serve as vital members of the educational team, playing a central role in creating a positive school climate and vital partnerships between the home, school, and community to ensure student academic success. And whereas all children have the right to safe environments and quality education, and whereas dignity and compassion for all students help define a school's character, and whereas the primary mission of the school social work profession is to enhance well-being and help meet the basic needs of all the students, especially the most vulnerable in our schools, and whereas school social workers help students at every grade level function better in their classroom, school, and in home environments, improve their relationships with others, and solve personal and school problems, and whereas there is a growing need for school districts to address services offered by school social workers for students' emotional, physical, and environmental needs so that students may achieve academic success, And whereas school social workers are especially skilled in providing support and services to students who face challenges including poverty, disabilities, loss of loved ones, identity, relationships, school transitioning, and other barriers to learning. And whereas school social workers celebrate the courage, hope, and strength of all students. Whereas Rockwood School District is proud to recognize the importance of social work in our schools and the critical role that school social workers play in helping mold and educate all students. Now, therefore, in recognition of the school social workers in the Rockwood School District, we, the Rockwood Board of Education, proclaim the month of March 2018 as National Social Work Month, and specifically the week of March 4 through 10, School Social Work Week, and call upon all citizens to join with the National Association of School Social Workers and Rockwood School District in celebration and support of the social work profession. Sorry.
Any other discussions or questions on the proclamation? The motion is to approve that proclamation. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Thank you. And I think Mr. Minicello is going to hang out with us for just a minute because the next one, I need a motion to approve the Board of Education. Boy, these are way worded. I need a motion to approve that the Board of Education proclaim February 5th through 9th as National School Counseling Week in the Rockwood School District.
Moved.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Minicello?
School counselors, I know everybody's going to say this, but in this case, it's true. We have the best, hardest working student advocates, in the state, and those are our school counselors. It's a fulfilling and rewarding job, and we have the right people doing it in Rockwood, and we really appreciate your constant support. And we need to continue to advocate and recognize our outstanding school counselors.
Do you know what question I'm going to ask?
53.
Now? Thank you, sir. It's good.
Katie, is he right?
I'm right.
All right, well, I believe Dr. Kinder is going to read this proclamation.
Proclamation, National School Counseling Week, February 5th through 9th, 2018. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development, and whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves. And whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the education process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Therefore, we, the Rockwood School District Board of Education, do hereby proclaim February 5th through 9th, 2018 as National School Counseling Week, dated this first day of February 2018. It'll be signed by Matt Dole, the President.
Any other questions or discussion of this proclamation? All right, the motion is to approve this proclamation. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your support. Thank you.
All right.
Yep, of course.
The next agenda item is an informational one. It's about professional development, and it's AMPed, which I'm sure stands for something. Dr. Willett and a few others are going to join us. Thank you.
So, the AMPed course, which is called Algebra and Manufacturing Production, Entrepreneurship and Design, I remembered it, combines a CTE course with an algebra course. And this was one of the two courses that we implemented this year that combines math with a CTE course. 2 years ago, Kim Litzow sent me a link to a website from a company called Contextual Learning, who actually started this program. It was 2 teachers in Colorado. I got on the website and looked at it and said, this looks pretty neat, and ran down to Lisa Lingle's office and said, what do you think of this? Do you think the math is meaty enough in this? And she said, yeah, I think so. So then we pulled Paige in, Paige Carlson, our CTE facilitator, and we just started working on it to see if we could get it to run. And we have brought with us tonight 2 teachers from Rockwood Summit, the dynamic duo of Casey Korn and Sam Hogg, and they're going to talk to you about what they do in their classrooms to combine that entrepreneurship t-shirt design with an algebra class. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
All right, welcome.
So yeah, we teach the AMP class, and I'm going to kind of just give you a quick overview on what we're doing.
You should introduce yourself.
I should. I'm Casey Korn. I teach the CTE side. It's my colleague Sam Hogg who does the algebra portion of it. And so what we do is we are a self-running business, and we got since Algebra 1, we mostly have freshmen in our classes, and we are running our own business, which is T-shirts, banners, any type of custom items that you think that you would like. So we're actually running this out of our classroom at Summit, and we do everything from designing to ordering to the accounting to the production, delivery, and throughout that entire process is where we're using the Algebra 1 skills. We are putting a meaning behind some of the numbers that a normal Algebra 1 class would have. And selfishly, being a CTE guy and not being a math guy going into this, this class is one of the coolest things I've ever seen until I saw pinball and foosball being made by 4th graders. My presentation didn't look so good after that, but honestly, it's exciting to be in there every single day. The kids are engaged. Every time you walk into the classroom, they're excited about what we're working on. And even whenever we go to the math side, which isn't the most exciting thing every single day, the kids understand why we are doing this and where the numbers are coming from. Before I let Sam talk here, I'm going to show you a couple of things that we have created.
My side's not fun?
Not as fun. Okay. Right here, just this is our vinyl printer printed this. One of our students, I do not have the skill to make something along those lines. One of our students has some Photoshop ability, took a picture of a kid, put it on this, and we printed this out on a vinyl printer that we have access to, cut it out, made a wood frame, stapled it, and we got a couple of these hanging up in our classroom. Again, available to purchase if people wanted custom orders. Couple of the T-shirts we made. This is our GIC shirt. They wanted kind of the T-shirts. You can see that on the front here, just the pocket T-shirt, and on the back, the design that they came up with that our kids had to learn how to transfer to vector art and then send off to the company to print them off. And finally, we just finished an apprentice project for actually you guys. We have presents, some shirts in here that the kids designed for the board. Created. We had a day, 3 days where they came up with the art and the design, and then we voted on it, and then the one that came out the best, or the kids thought was the best, we stayed out of this entire process. They printed it, and they weeded out the material, and they placed it on the shirt, and they pressed the shirt. What did we screw up? Like couple of them. We made some mistakes. They're still 14-year-old kids, and that's a good thing. Yeah. They've learned, and we'll answer any of those questions about it. The first order we had was an order for 100 T-shirts, and we screwed up 1 out of every 4 of those T-shirts. Kids realize they don't make a lot of money when we screw those up. But this is the design of the shirt we'll be giving you guys before we walk out of here. So we got one for everyone on the board. So. Again, it's awesome. It's great that the kids are doing it, and I am ready for some questions.
I'm glad I don't have to talk. I actually thought the first time I'd ever be here, I'd probably be getting fired for doing something, not talking about this class that is just wildly engaging to students, that it is extremely student-centered, and I have not had to do more than 2 or 3 days of direct instruction over the course of 2.5 quarters so far.
Connect the algebra thing for everyone.
So the algebra thing is for us, instead of taking Algebra 1 concepts of the very first teacher order that we took was in order of 100. We had to kind of estimate how many defective shirts that we were going to have, so we could then project how many that we had to order. You can't order 100 t-shirts because if you're going to screw them up, then you have to order more. So we make our students use our production time that we have, our running defective rate, to the next order that we ran was Summit Basketball that was 250 shirts that we use that to then project and model how many do we need to order if we want to get our defective rate down, how long is this order going to take us. So we use some of that linear projections in order to use for the t-shirt design of how many we need to order. Right now we're using systems of equations to model all of our expenses that we're going to have for an order, coupled with all of the revenue that we're going to take in to figure out what the break-even number of t-shirts that we're going to have to sell in order for us to actually turn a profit in the class. We can use those revenue and expense equations to make profit equations, and again, use systems of equations and kind of the idea of surplus and the not so much systems of equations, but systems of inequalities to figure out different parts of the business side. And more importantly, I think that we give them application problems that are meaningful to them, that instead of giving them word problems that deal with apples and oranges and, you know, how far does it take you to get to your friend Kim's house, all of our applications are about revenue. They're about expenses. They're about wages. They're about taxes. They're about things that are going to be meaningful for them, not just in our class, but hopefully things that they're going to be able to connect to for the rest of their lives. It's pretty fun.
When we get done with an order, we sit back and we say, okay, we projected that we were going to make this amount of money. Did we hit our projections? And we throw out the equations in front of us, and we use the actual numbers that are in front of us. We fill them into the equations that we created prior to starting this, and you know that's how they're solving the different equations. Some of that algebra stuff.
I've had the pleasure of seeing this in action in a few of our schools, and I want to compliment the two of you because the success of this class depends on the partnership of the two sides. Yeah. and you guys clearly have a chemistry that I think works well. I think the kids know that, and it just makes for a great combination, a great learning experience. And I would have been all over this as a kid because I couldn't figure out what algebra was for when I was learning it, you know, in my much younger years. So it's you guys are a great example of how the two, you know, sides can come together on this and teach something in a different way that's very practical. And I think our numbers are already growing in the requests for these, and they're going to continue to grow.
It's a year-long course or a semester?
It's a year-long course, and actually the one negative thing about it is it's a year-long course and it's 2 classes within a year-long course. So it's 5th hour they come and 6th hour they stay. So it's, I mean, technically it's blocked every day. So we see them for a year, 2 hours a day.
Next year, will you use the same format or will you design something else?
As far as our products go, I think that our products that we produce for this class will mostly be garment material type things, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, shorts. We're really just starting to brush what we can do with our printer, the capabilities of that, whether it is that our printer has the capability of making the decals that go on back of shirts. They can make decals that go on the back of cars. They can make those posters. We're just trying to brush the surface of that. And being the first year, and it's a lot of planning on our half, we spend the majority of our lunch working and talking about what we're doing that day, what we're doing the next day, kind of planning for the future. There's some things that we tweak. The curriculum that we got from Colorado was very much geared to a wood shop class, is the CTE credit. And Casey's done a great job of more modeling that into like a business, advertising, marketing, more of a business level type class. And not so much a shop class. So there will be some things that we change next year, but for the most part, A lot of the math and a lot of the business will stay pretty similar to what we have, but always try to tailor it to our students.
What's the enrollment in your classes, or your class?
Right now, we have 20. Eureka High School has a larger one than we have. I think 34?
Yep.
34?
I think Lafayette has 24.
Okay, Eureka's building the building, is that right? Is that there?
That is a different class. That is the geometry and construction class, where they couple geometry with more of the woods class.
Oh, okay.
Review that at another meeting.
That's very good, thank you.
Questions or comments?
We're comfortable that the students are learning their standards along with all of the other skills that they're attaining?
On the math side? I think so. I know that it goes at a much different pace than the regular Algebra 1 class. We don't teach all of the chapters in the same order. But I think as far as rigor level goes, I think that a lot of the application problems that we're doing, which is a lot of our upfront work. We do a lot of the applications up front. We do the real life meanings to it. And then what I like to call naked math, the very basic skills. If I just give you a problem, can you go solve it? We do those more at the very end of the chapter. And students are a little disengaged in that because they've seen the big picture. They've seen the really hard problems and where they're going to do it. So the very basic ones, the ones that are already made up for them, those are the ones that we try to really limit what they have.
To can transfer their learning to the basics so that they're walking away with basic skills as well as the higher level.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that when you look at when our students take the EOC in April, I think when you look at them taking the ACT, I think that a lot of those application problems that they'll do really well on, especially the ones that are making students sit there and persevere through a problem, something that is not just easy. They do a great job of not giving up and really being resilient. Our class is very much a group work class, but when it comes to what we've seen on our assessments, the really hard, high-end level Algebra 1 questions that we're asking them, they do a really good job on those.
If I can, just being a non-math guy to add to that, and I obviously I have the skills, and we work really well together where most of the time you can't tell, you know, is it business or is it math because the curriculums fall together. Listening to the people from Colorado who pitched us these ideas and have come and trained us, Algebra 1 across the nation is the most failed class in the nation, and we have students that at times don't know they're doing math, and they're still learning the same concepts. And when you put the math homework in front of them, they say, you know, we've got to encourage them a little bit more to do it. But then the next thing you know, they'll be doing something that's a business-related thing, and they're doing the exact same concept. They just don't know it's the math. So they're still learning. They're learning it, and sometimes we're disguising it, and I think that's helping the kids really, you know, understand some of these concepts.
Questions or comments? Gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. And by the way,
thank you.
The math is the fun part, though I may be a little biased.
I was going to say that too, and Dr. Kinder's over here the same way. But
You got a couple math teachers and an engineer here. We're all good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. All right. The next item is is about curriculum. It's about middle school math, and I think Dr. Willett's going to join us again. I need a motion to postpone approval of the Missouri School Math Course Curriculum as presented until the February 15th board meeting. We have a motion and a second. Just a reminder to everybody, when these come up for the first time, we always vote to postpone them. We see a presentation on what it is, and then everybody has a chance until the next board meeting to review it, and if anybody has any questions, they can bring them up. Barring any questions, next time it'll appear in the consent agenda. But welcome. Thank you.
Right. So in the past year, the curriculum department has done a lot more collaboration with the assessment department, data, and PD. And one of the things that we've done is we've recently developed a mission statement. And I thought I would share that tonight because I think the coursework that we're going to talk about really captures that mission statement. We've decided that our mission statement is going to be to provide a meaningful and challenging academic program that connects all students to learning and honors their differences. And we really tried to do that as we worked on this middle school math program review in many ways. This was born from the Middle School Program Design Committee. One of the tasks that the academic team came up with was to develop a different math scope and sequence for our middle schools so that we could allow kids to accelerate and not have to skip content. and move at their own pace. So Lisa's going to talk a little bit about the committee work that went on and what the end result was. This was a fascinating committee to work with. They were so excited about the process when they got into it, and they really looked at the data and thought about what our kids needed and really centered the discussion on that, and I was really excited about that. And they were willing to stick their necks out there and try some different things, so it was an exciting group to watch.
All right, good evening. So as Shelley pointed out, the Middle School Program Design Committee that presented recommendations last spring recommended that we research or look at different methods to allow students to accelerate in middle school math without having to skip the grade level content, which was a concern. So as a result, we developed or formed a middle school vision team, and that middle school vision team then was comprised of a lot of representatives across the district, including middle school and high school math teachers, middle school and high school counselors, parents, administrators. After being delayed by the flood, actually we're able to meet in August and to address kind of those recommendations that were made by the design team and review our current practices in math. So the design team then discussed various topics from the student perspective, from a teacher's perspective, a parent perspective, and also read some research-based articles that help guide our work. But as Shelley pointed out, also, it was just amazing to see the energy and excitement in the room as they kind of shared and discussed ideas for creating a pathway that allowed students to really to create a program that will allow to meet the needs of all of our students in Rockwood. And so some of the topics that actually rose to the top at that meeting was making sure that we provided students with time to have a deeper understanding of the math concepts, providing students with a blended learning experience, providing students with a learning experience that makes for a smooth transition to high school mathematics, and provide a sequence that eliminates tracking. Ultimately, after a lot of discussion and collaboration, it was decided that we should explore personalized competency-based education for our middle school students. So that was a big task. So the first thing our curriculum writing team had to do was to learn what is competency-based education and what does personalized learning really mean for our students. What is it? What is its benefits? So a competency-based education is a system basically of instructions where students are advanced to higher levels of learning when they demonstrate mastery of concepts, regardless of time, place, or pacing. So basically you're looking at learning as being the constant, and time. Personalized learning gives students space in how their instruction or their assessments. So after doing, then broke the team into 5 groups to kind of research these key components to a personalized competency-based education system. And we wanted to answer these questions. How is it different? Would this be difficult? Would it would work? What work would have to be done, have to be involved to make this happen? If we were to make this shift, what would have to happen, or would it have to happen all at once, or could it be something we gradually move toward? And then what resources would aid in that transition or implementation of that shift? So using that information, we were then able to identify what we felt we could manage and move forward towards that personalized competency-based education system within our current structure. So our goals involved 3 things. Number 1, narrowing the content so that we could go deeper and help students build conceptual understanding instead of just kind of teaching at a surface. Getting students to accelerate without allowing students number 1 to 8th grade, involving students tackle our first goal of narrowing the content, we identified some critical concepts in all grade levels and then organized those into kind of a mathematical progression. We aligned those critical concepts then to Missouri learning standards and developed proficiency scales for each of those. And then the proficiency scales are what identifies what students must know, understand, and do to demonstrate mastery of those concepts. It includes the key vocabulary, skills that have to be learned, and sample problems to show applications of the skills that students would have to demonstrate to show that they're proficient. So then the curriculum team was able to identify concepts across grade levels that could be taught together or integrated. So you can see the difference by the highlighting of the blue and the green. This kind of split, as you notice, the 7th grade content or concepts kind of in half, allowing us a direction for some compacting of the curriculum. So ultimately, we developed a course sequence that would compact or integrate the curriculum, allowing students to accelerate without skipping the content. And we decided to rename the courses to give clarity to the grade level standards that would be addressed in each course. We will be using a variety of criteria to make recommendations for placement for incoming 6th grade students. On grade level students will have an opportunity to move to the accelerated pathway through completing some summer work and already accelerated. Shelley and I have been doing a lot of communicating with to get some messaging out all the key states. Review possible changes.
What has the response been from the staff, the teachers that are going to be making these changes?
Middle school math teachers not really sat down and went through the writing team, sat with them, and really described the narrowing of that content. It's like a weight being lifted off their shoulder, that they have time in their class now to do these innovative practices in classrooms that we've been trying to get them to move and make that shift to, because they're like, you're freeing up so much time for me to be able to go deeper and do those kind of things that, as Casey and Sam pointed out, that are going to have more meaning to them and allow them, I think, to retain the information and learn it at a deeper level.
Do you use the same resources as the elementary program?
Oh,
that
no, our current, we're going to use
so
our
as the current, okay.
at this point, yeah.
So I know we dabbled a little bit with that. Was the decision not yet, or stay
Not
where
yet.
we're at for this?
Yeah,
or?
not yet. This is
Yeah.
this is kind of an interim move
Okay,
into that
that's what I
full-blown competency-based. Honestly, some of the teachers really wanted to go there right now, and we just can't do that because we have to go through some steps with
Yeah.
the state to have them allow us to do that and do some other things. But we felt like this was a good step in that right direction to have people feel a little bit more comfortable with it and getting into those proficiency scales and really looking at how do we determine proficiency, what does that mean, and moving on from there. It's going to tighten up that assessment piece so that we all have a common understanding of what that standard looks like in a classroom. And I think that was the most eye-opening to them, is that as teachers, we always worry about the kids, and so we add all these other things in there that we fear that they're not going to get if I don't do that. And kind of stripping some of that away, I think, freed them in a lot of ways to think about, oh, with that time I could do this really deep project that my kids could really dig into, rather than skimming the surface on all these things that in some cases they really didn't need as much.
And as you pointed out, they really want to move to and believe that moving to a competency-based system would be the right direction. And so we want to make that shift, but there's only so much you can tackle
Right.
at a time, and it requires a lot more structural changes and communications and pieces. So we're hoping to continue to move in that direction.
Feel like the communication piece is going to be sort of the biggest challenge in this.
It always is.
Right. Yeah.
As I was doing research and talking to other schools using that type of system, by the way, there's mostly East Coast and West Coast, to
Right.
be quite honest with you, when I'm talking to them, they said that the issue that you might have if you try and do it just for mathematics is if you're going to sell this and say this is a great system, they're going to push back and say,
Right.
well, why aren't you doing it in all areas? So, something to consider.
So, looking at the way our elementary curriculum is so many, so many manipulative, so much group work, things like that, and typically when they're getting to middle school, it's like hit the brakes, totally different. So we're going to try to integrate a little bit of this into that to make that a little bit better transition.
I've been constantly professional development.
Yeah.
The way with teachers about using
Mm-hmm.
and using different approaches, but mostly doing some of those deep task and activity for them to see the Kaplinski. About getting our kids.
Right, and continue to be confident and interested so that they can continue on that path, yeah.
Really fortunate Fox School District kind of took the charge on, we need some good math PD in the area because we just weren't getting it. We weren't getting national speakers to come in. And Fox kind of took the lead on that and asked us if we would partner with them. And so every summer they're offering, last year was the first one, they're doing it again this year, a conference called Adding It Up. And we send a bunch of teachers down there, and it really is the hands-on, really engaging math tasks to do with kids at all grade levels. And they really gear it toward elementary, middle, high, so you can pick your pathway and stay within your grade levels and really learn a lot.
What are some of the other plans for professional development besides that?
Also, Cara M. She works at Math in the City in New York, but she comes in and works on number strings and how to do kind of number talks in a way with students in the classroom. I also had Pam Harris came in just last week to work with our algebra teachers on problem strings, so you could see how you can take a different string of problems and find generalizations and connections and build those things. And it's all about the questioning strategies that you're using with students, not so much about you being the person just delivering the message and trying to get everybody to, what's the next step? What's the next step? It's about getting them to think and seeing what they're.
I think even what we just heard in the last presentation just speaks volumes to that, and it's totally kids' confidence level. When they don't realize they're doing it, they have so much more confidence. So, when we're not moving from that 5th grade structure into the 6th grade structure of sit at your desk and look at the board, that confidence just,
That whole model that the elementary math is built on, that concrete pictorial abstract, is really what gets kids, and so we've been talking about that a lot in middle school math as well.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing too. Our 6th grade teachers just got to go see Greg Tang. Greg Tang came to our district, and they Greg Tang and honestly, we're like this. Strategies out.
So I really like this. I'm anxious to see 2 years down the road how it evaluates out for growth. And I appreciate you coming up earlier tonight and thanking. It reminded me that I asked you a trivia question last time you were up here. It made me think of another one. Here's another math trivia question. A roulette wheel, it has numbers on it?
Yes.
If you take all the numbers on the roulette wheel and add them up, what do you end up with? What is the number? I haven't either, but I know the answer. It's 666, which is the Satan symbol. That should tell you something there, Lisa. Don't play roulette.
Right, well, we've gone a little askew of the topic here. Thank you.
Just a little.
Wait, can you go back just one slide? I was very pleased to see this one in particular because back in the bad old days, your 5th grade teacher got to decide what your next 5 years of math education was going to be. And in recent years, we've had a little bit of ability in each year to skip forward, but that was sometimes subjective and not really. Competency-based is a breath of fresh air, so it's a hard thing to get to, but I think the district's going to be a lot better off for having done this. So.
All the different rates.
Right.
And it's very cool. It's such a cool model that just because you start on one doesn't mean you can't move into the other. Or the summer work that you mentioned sounds very interesting, you know, so.
Supported summer work. We're
Right.
going to actually have a teacher supporting those families that want to take that opportunity to move ahead.
Do you agree that this is just my quasi-educated feeling that the more competency based we become with math, and the more we get a better grip on how we differentiate, that more and more and more 8th grade kids are going to reach the Algebra 1. You know, and I know that we always have to have the ability to differentiate all levels. That will always be there. But I think that even if that's not an intended goal, that by default that is going to happen. I think that the really competency base in all content areas, you know, when we talk about the Missouri Assessment Consortium that we've decided to enter into, I mean, when we look at more meaningful ways to assess children, we know that we're going to get there. And you're right, Lisa. I mean, East Coast and West Coast. Midwest is always the last, right? So we can kind of be ahead of the game a little bit as we explore what we know is already working and doing good things in other areas.
Lisa, present this to the curriculum team, just talking about in general the proficiency scale idea, because we have proficiency scales on our curriculum, but they're not as robust as the ones that they've created, and they really took that and worked on that. And it's very exciting to start talking about that because it tightens everything up and gives you a very clear target so that kids know what they're aiming for. And so we're really excited to start expanding that idea into other content areas.
We say in the Assessment Consortium that when we develop assessments, students need to be the first audience. Students need to understand what we're assessing and what they're able to do, know, and say, and so on and so forth. And that's what's wrong with the archaic ways of doing things. It's exciting.
Thank you for your enthusiasm and your leadership.
Hey, ladies, did I hear you too? Is the summer thing, is that online?
It will be online, guided by a teacher.
Okay. How many staff members do you anticipate using during the summer? Do you know?
We don't know yet.
Don't know? Okay.
We'll have to wait and see where
Okay.
enrollment takes us.
Thank you.
This was informational only, but very informational. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Shelley.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was a motion. It was not. It was a motion. The motion is to postpone the approval to the next board meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That passes. Thank you. The next item is, we brought it up as a motion, though we could reschedule without it, but can I have a motion to approve rescheduling the April 5th Board Meeting of Education until April 12th?
So moved.
Good. We have a motion and a second. The only discussion is ordinarily if we need to move a board meeting, we can administratively do that and set it for another day. This board meeting is a little more specific because it is the board meeting immediately following the election of new board members. This year, happily, we have 3 openings and 3 incumbents looking at those openings, so we will not have an election in our district. But April 5th would still have been the evening when we reorganize the board, where we elect the president and the vice president and set the secretary. State guidance is that we have to do that within 10 days of the election day, whether or not we have an election. That election is on April 3rd, so if we do it on the 12th, we are still within the 10-day period. And by moving it a week, we can accommodate some scheduling conflicts in the administration and board members. So it's kind of a way to have our cake and eat it too. We're staying within the state guidance on this issue. We'll still have the same board members, and we'll be able to do those functions on the 12th without missing anything in between. So I guess I would ask, is there any discussion on that issue? All right, all those in favor, the motion is to postpone until the 12th. Anybody, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That passes. Thank you. The next item is on purchasing, and it's, I need a motion to approve, things I'm, boy, tonight I'm just stumbling over everything. The purchasing and policy 7210, construction contracts bidding. So a motion to approve revisions to policy 3170, purchasing policy 7210, construction contracts bidding and awards.
So moved.
It's a motion and a second. Thank you. Paul, I think is it. Welcome.
So what we're proposing and needing to do is really just a title change within those two policies that deal with purchasing and the awarding of contracts. Currently, the policy references a director of purchasing, and that's Mr. Bill Sloan right now, who you know is retiring March 1st. That new position will be assumed by Ms. Kirchhofer, who will have the title of coordinator of purchasing. So we really just want to update the policy to reflect the new position of coordinator where it's now listed as director.
I asked Paul to bring this because once again we get into that kind of wonky thing with the PIN process. This is a byproduct. The need for this is a byproduct of the fact that we have changed the name of this position that Bill currently holds, and as Paul said, that Brenda will assume. We called MSBA to say, you know, is it okay to just keep the policy the same, because we're not changing the policy, it's just that the title is different, and they said no, it's not okay. So we're not changing policy, we're changing that to match, and it didn't seem to make sense to bring it to the PIN process.
Then let's get it right.
Yeah.
Let's make it right. Yeah. This is the only change in it, is changing the
That's the only change.
to
So
director to
where
coordinator?
it
Okay.
references director to be coordinator.
We're just asking questions about the wording. So if you look at the second one, it's now will say the coordinator purchasing?
Well,
Coordinator of
Purchasing or the purchasing coordinator?
it's coordinator of purchasing is what it's going to be.
So the of's not in there, but
So
that
the
would be in
of's
there.
not in there, it's,
So basically where it references director, we're just scratching director and putting coordinator in there to reference it.
Okay, well, there was not an of in there before, so if
well,
it,
there's no of. Understand.
is there any other discussion on the change to this policy and purchasing policies?
I can look at my computer.
And if we need an of, just take license and put an of in there.
Laura Lee's copy.
Right. So the motion is to approve the revisions to those policies. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That does pass. Thank you, sir. I think, Paul, you're going to hang around for the next one as well. I need a motion to approve the bond issue purchases and related contracts between $7,500 and $150,000 as submitted.
Moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second, thank you. And once again, just as a comment update, we've taken bond issue purchases and kind of somewhat arbitrarily divided them in things smaller than $150,000 and those larger than $150,000. Those that are under $150,000, we kind of lump together in one motion and we go through each and every one of them, but we vote on them all at once. Anything over $150,000, we take separate motions to review them so that anybody else takes a little bit closer look at the dollar amount if it's over that amount. So just administratively, that's the reason we're doing what we're doing. Gentlemen, what's on the under $150,000?
We have two items on the bond issue 17 approval agenda tonight. Both are in regards to the Geggy Building Addition project. The first one is for SCI Engineering. This is basically third-party construction materials testing during the project. They will come in, check compaction, infill rates, test concrete, test structural steel connections, things of that nature through their engineering firm, just to make sure everything's being done appropriately throughout the project.
The other one.
Well, this falls underneath the best value at an amount. And Geggy, again, is one of the older buildings in the district, so even more important that we do this kind of testing. So, any discussion on the first one? All right, let's take a look at the second one. And it would be the first new building in 23 years, 24 years?
We have to vote on the other one.
Second one is over
Oh, I'm sorry. We had two items underneath. I'm sorry. I'm getting excited.
No, there's only one.
Just one.
The next one's
All right.
over.
So the motion is to approve the bond issue purchases under $150,000. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That passes. All right. Next, we need a motion to approve the bond issue purchases and related contracts over $150,000 from Wachter Incorporated for district-wide classroom and multipurpose room additions from the fiscal 17-18, and it's for Geggy Elementary. So we have a motion and a second. Tell us about this one.
All right, so this is the Gagey Building Addition that was included in Bond Issue 17. This is the first large project out of the chute as part of Bond Issue 17. Wachter Incorporated was the successful bidder on this project. If you look at the agenda item, we had very good participation in this process. We had 8 companies submit bids on this project, and the bids were very tight. So we feel like we did a really good job on design and narrowing down a scope of work, and we're happy with the results of our process. This is a 7-room building addition at Gagey Elementary and the renovation of the existing media center. Basically, the media center will be demolished and rebuilt, and that'll allow for a larger cafeteria space as well as larger bathroom facilities in that vicinity.
Is that going to start, Chris?
We are looking to start immediately. We actually vacated the existing media center today with our district staff, so upon approval tonight, we will be having a kickoff meeting next Tuesday, the 6th, and we will be underway as soon as possible.
In the middle of the school, isn't it?
That is correct. We feel like we have a plan in place that we can address, the demolition of the media center and start constructing that area in hopes that we can have it done as close to as close as possible to the beginning of next school year.
Won't affect the cafeteria.
No, we will have those areas cordoned off, and it'll be secure.
About the classrooms? It's 8 classrooms.
Well, it's 7 full-size classrooms. There's an 8th room.
Right.
That's going to be used as an alternative space at this time. But the majority of that space will be a new kindergarten wing, and then that'll open up the existing kindergarten facility for other functions.
Start that at the same time?
That will be a little behind. The way that campus is set up, the media center is kind of in the heart of the campus, so the sequencing just makes sense to work on that media center first and work our way out.
The discussion on this bond issue purchase? Been a long time coming. We had drawings of it last time here.
It is, yep. Real quick, I'd like to introduce a couple folks that have joined us tonight. Mark Ruther and Wade Welch. They're with Honer and Associates, who was the principal architect on this project. And then Mark Camp is with Wachter Incorporated. Mark has done, this will be their 4th large project that they've executed for the district. Most recently, they did the Lafayette STEM Lab renovations last summer. So we're very familiar with both Honer and Wachter, and we're excited to get started.
Welcome, gentlemen. Any other questions on this issue? All right, the motion is to approve the bond issue purchase. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That passes. Thank you.
One last item, if I may. We talked last board meeting that we would be bringing the renderings of the new Eureka Elementary this evening, and we have done so. So they're over there for your viewing pleasure after the meeting. We will hang around and answer any questions that you may have. And I'd also like to introduce a couple other individuals that have joined us tonight. Dickinson Hussman was the lead architect on this project. We've been in design for almost 12 months. And it's been a lot of long hours, a lot of input from the existing facility, from Lynn White, the principal, and we feel good about where we're at right now with design. So we're excited to show those plans to you all tonight. But I want to introduce Dwight Dickinson and Don Hussman with DHA. We've been working very closely with them on this project. They've also done some other projects for us as well, most recently the STEM lab renovations last summer. So we'll all be around to answer some questions if anybody has any. Okay?
A little ahead of myself. That's the first new building we've built in 23 years, and it's brand new out of the ground and exciting for the community. With such growth in Eureka, so it's great.
Be a beautiful building too, and if you haven't wandered over to look at the rendering, make sure you do that before you leave.
All right, and we did vote on that, so we're.
Is that going to be named Eureka? That's an automatic? Eureka, okay.
You want to name it the
Well, I don't know.
Kinder?
Kinder Elementary.
To me, you're vacating Eureka Elementary.
Great question.
Perhaps the Roulette Elementary School?
Kinder does sound nice.
And Mondel.
Kinder and Mondel. That sounds like a law firm.
K&M.
Thank you, gentlemen. Moving right along. The next item is informational. It's on the COPE, the Communications Outreach and Public Engagement Committee. Currently, that's Director Bays, Director Kinder, and Director Miller. I'm not sure who's going to address that tonight.
I'll address it. Happy
Director
to.
Miller, thank you.
We met on the 22nd with Dr. Knost and Kathy Orta. And we discussed our previous need for presentations for the board on some of the great things that have been going on in the district. Tonight was the first with the AMP, so they did a great job. We got the rest of the school year booked. We have March 1st. We have the Fine Arts and Choice-Based Art Curriculum. We'll have teachers here talking about the new approach with the art curriculum, and then they'll also have a video with the students. And then on May 3rd, we'll have a project Lead the Way, where we'll have some students displaying their capstone projects in both biomedical and engineering pathways, so that's pretty exciting. And then we'll also have some teachers here sharing the courses, kind of what they do and how they're going to prepare our students for problems in the 21st century. And then we also discussed kind of a want or a need, desire for board members to be able to get out and see some of these programs in action. So we wanted to try and see like the geometry and construction and the AMPed in the classroom, see them up and running. Janet actually sent out on February 8th in Eureka. I don't know if you guys all got that invite. We're actually going to go see that, so hope you guys can join on that. And then we also talked about seeing some of the innovative learning centers in the elementary schools. So hopefully we can set some of that up with Dave Cobb. And then, as you all know, the end of the year fills up very fast. So I know it's hard to think about right now when it's 20 degrees, but there's lots of activities in April and May that we all try and get to. So Kathy's going to try and get together a schedule soon so we can kind of fill in our calendars and divide and conquer. So, and then with that beautiful thing over there, we talked about the groundbreaking. So we're trying to set up a date also for that so that all the board members can get to that and attend a groundbreaking and hopefully throw some dirt. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions on that?
We also talked a little bit about giving tours of the high schools as we do the awards night, maybe seeing their STEM labs or STREAM labs, whichever they call them, a little bit before. Like we did, I think it was last year we did Eureka.
With the new athletic facility.
Maybe see the three schools in the new innovation.
2 weeks, right? Yeah. 2 weeks from Marquette.
Marquette in 2 weeks? Yeah.
The next item is a discussion. We've been working on the Missouri Outstanding Board of Education Award. We've had a committee of Director Romberg, Vice President Mondel, and Director Midyet, and I think Tammy's going to tell us about that.
The committee met, and we have decided on the physical and environmental resources as our area to submit. And we had previously sent out the action plan to the board, seeking your input. So if you'll take a minute and look through that, if you have any areas that you think we've missed that we may want to add, if you'll contact me, then we'll be sure to add that, and we will begin our action plan and bring that to you on the 15th in a draft form so that we can then make it pretty, make sure we get all of our I's dotted and T's crossed and get it ready to submit on a timely manner.
Obviously, you guys have already put in a fair amount of work on this. Do appreciate that. That's
And I have to tell you, I think that everybody, the two other ladies will agree that, we met for a couple hours. You walked out of there and it was really made you think about more than just we come to meetings and think about things and talk to people. It really, at least for me, felt like we really focused on so many great things that our district does. And it's, it's one thing to say, great, we're great at this, we're great at that, but then, to actually list these things and then talk to people and kind of confirm them, I think it was a great discussion. And we talked about having discussions like that at the whole board, because it really makes you kind of step back and think more about, rah, we're doing a good job, but here are the list of things, and these are the people that are involved.
A fair analysis of strengths and weaknesses in areas that we need to grow, and it made us all think about what we're doing.
Talked a lot about processes that are in place and sustainability for the future, and we are doing great things, but how do we ensure those great things continue on when some of us move on? So, but conversation, great way to looking at
Where do we go from here? This isn't the final, this isn't,
According to our timeline, each of the committee are going to work on our sections, and they're delineated in the action plan. We will bring a draft of that to the board on the 15th, or prior to the 15th, you'll have it to review before the submission.
it's a regular document, we're answering questions, or
This is what your areas of concern. A category.
let's produce documents to prove,
We do.
okay?
And that's what each of us are going to do, meet with people that we've listed,
Gather
that
the da-
documentation.
We'll gather the data and information, compile our component parts. We're going to put it together in one document.
Anything you're asking for is the board members to take a look at this document, get your feedback, hopefully a day or two before the next board meeting so you can compile it. So if everybody would do that and give them feedback, I think that would help.
And actually think about things that we may have missed.
Okay.
I want to thank MSBA. It's a great system, and it's a good, again, a good tool for continuous improvement of our work.
We put down here somewhere that we hosted her tonight, that's part of our presentation.
Do we get points for that? All right. All right, the next item is the proposed agenda for the February 15th. I trust we'll see that on there. All right, as always, you've got a week or so. Generally, we try and finalize that agenda a few days before, but in practice, if we can do it a week before, that helps lock all that down. So take a look through that. If there's anything you would like to see added or if something comes up you'd like to have added to the agenda, get hold of Janet or Dr. Knost or myself, and we'll get that done.
And we usually keep those a little lighter because that is a awards
Right.
night.
So we are at Lafayette? Where are we next week? Marquette.
Time in it.
Lynn and Randy.
Move it around if that's a problem.
No, I'm happy.
Does that work? Okay.
Okay, so that is at Marquette. We can only say that enough times because people like me show up at the wrong place. So, all right. The next one is any future agenda items. We know that tomorrow morning is the legislative breakfast. Several of the Missouri state legislators will be there. We do this with Parkway and Pattonville. This year it is a elementary school in Pattonville, which happily where I work is only about 5 minutes away. So it's a long drive for everyone else, but it's a worthy thing. I think we're all going to be there, so we need to remember to actually start an official meeting, keep the minutes, and adjourn at the end of it. But
Oh, yeah, am I supposed to keep the minutes for us?
Secretary of Pattonville is going to be there, and she's going to do the minutes and give them to all the
yeah,
boards.
it's fairly brief. It's just a legislative discussion. There's no action items or anything like that.
No.
Any other future agenda items to attend? I think we had a list last week or 2 weeks ago. So lots of things come up. Once again, please don't just show up at a school. If you are wishing to go to it, I think board members are always graciously welcome, but give the administration of that school building warning and give them a chance to welcome you in so they don't wonder who that is at the door. So, all right, are there any other items tonight?
Thinking ahead, they gave us a list, I think, of which schools graduated and which night. Did everybody get that?
Yes.
Okay.
Place they're all that same week, all at Chaffetz again, the way we've done it the last several years. Anything else tonight? All right, thank you for coming. We will adjourn.